Okay, we're recording.
Great.
Good. All right. So,
Here we
welcome, brothers. Welcome. Forgive the glitches. We're doing this Zoom meeting for the first time, or rather, using the Zoom platform as the new software we're using. So, anyway, we're just kind of learning it for the first time. So, welcome. My name is Donny Lobree,
and my name is Kirk Prine.
Yes, and we're so pleased to welcome you from our home, direct from San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And we are taking up again these queer tribe conversations. We had done them some time ago. We had a series of them, and I believe those conversations are still on our website.
Yes,
that we did.
If you want to listen to any of the recordings of past conversations, they're up on the website.
Yeah. So we're starting a new series of these queer tribe conversations, and what are these queer tribe conversations? Well, they're Kirk's brainchild, and his idea was to bring together thought leaders, elders, shamans, healers, spiritual teachers, queer change agents, and queer community builders, and seed a juicy conversation about who we are and our roles and contributions. What might they be in the world? And some visions for a queer people making a difference. So, and of course, this interview series comes from the perspective of men who love men. Gay, bisexual, transgender, and two-spirit. So that's why we're here. And so to kick off this revival of our queer tribe conversations, we thought, well, wouldn't it be fun to interview Kirk Prine, who is my husband. We've been married for 13 years. And yes, it's true, we met on Craigslist. Anyway, so I want to introduce my beloved here, and all the things, I can never remember all the things he is, but Kirk is a body story life coach, integrative body worker, Reiki master, ritual master, former psychotherapist, and he's the primary facilitator of the Flesh and Spirit community, which is based here in San Francisco. And he's the co-founder of the Missing Thread Mystery School, another piece of work that we do. Kirk is also the author of the book called Erotic Body Prayer. Kirk has been a civil rights activist, GLBTQ activist, AIDS activist, and is currently part of the resistance. Oh, Bunny, I didn't know all those things about you. I've only been married to you for 13 years. Anyway, it's always an education, so welcome. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes. So we have certain basic questions that we ask every guest on the show. They're pretty much the same questions, and everyone answers, according to their thing. So the first thing we want to know, Bunny, that's my nickname for him, is tell us about your spiritual journey that informs you.
Yeah.
And by the way,
yes,
we love stories. If you have a story or two.
Of course. Yeah. Well, I think we're living in pretty interesting times, and part of why I say that is a preface to tell about my own personal journey and spiritual awakenings is sometimes some of the greatest gifts come out of the most difficult moments. So, my spiritual journey actually started, I think, in a wounding time, which as a little boy, I was sexually abused by my father. And those deep wounds that happened through that abuse have become many of the gifts now as I've healed myself in being the healer and what I'm able to do in helping people transform what we call body stories, the stories that are held in our bodies. But I tell that first part because, my early awakenings were when in the context of Christianity, I had some mystical experience when I was like 12, and then later when I was like 16. And those mystical experiences were greater than the container of any religion, or especially within the container of what was happening. And what I can tell you is, in those experiences I had early on as a boy, is I just felt this whoosh go through my body. You know, all of me was tingling and vibrating, and I really felt like I was connected to every living being. And in fact, after the experience, I can remember, you know, going and hugging a tree and actually feeling like the tree and I were in conversation with each other. So, you know, it was juicy to have that whoosh, that bodily experience of the divine, something waking up inside of me. And shortly after that experience, I had one of my early erotic sexual experiences with a much older man than myself. And here I am kind of exploring, and it was really quite lovely and juicy and yummy. And, you know, just that adventure, that early adventure of, you know, touching another and being engaged and feeling all of those levels of connections. And all of a sudden, whoosh happened. Just like the kind of whoosh that happened in my mystical experiences. And, you know, I knew something had happened, but I also knew I was, you know, playing and engaging in something new and juicy. And the man that I was with, he just said, "Kirk, you know, what did you just do to me?" And I said, "Well, I don't know, you know," but I knew he was talking about. I knew he had experienced that whoosh kind of cycle through our bodies together as we were playing. And he said, "Well, you know, I've had tendinitis for years, and it gives me a lot of pain. And, you know, as we're, you know, making love, having sex, all the pain went away." So it was one of those moments where the truth that sets one free, that sets me free, got encoded in my body. That my erotic energy and my spiritual energy were not two separate things. They were one energy. And so that story really informed me of what I know in my body, and later became part of my calling as a gay queer man. So that whoosh. And as time progressed, you know, I was so hungry for what I call the divine, and looking to make that connection, and, you know, went to seminary and tried all the scholastic things around trying to find God, the divine, and it was all lacking. It just was falling up short. And I bought into all the lies, just because there was so much love in that container. So it's kind of like a Stockholm syndrome moment for me, of being surrounded by people who really, really loved me, but who understood that me as a gay man, to see it, that was sinful, it was wrong, it was an abomination, all those ugly things that we have been called by religious zealots from every tradition almost at times. And so that lie started building up, and I started practicing, trying to get out of being gay. So most people don't even know this part of my story, but I'm telling it just to kind of seed the conversation. And so after many years of trying to fix myself, I finally got it that what I was hungry for, it's kind of like what Rumi says, what you're seeking is already there for you. And what I was seeking had already been given to me. What I was seeking was that connection to the divine, which I already knew from the time I was a kid. What I was seeking was the juiciness of that connection, how it felt when I was making love to another man's body. So I got together, and this takes us almost up to the years of being a psychotherapist, being a healer, and AIDS came along. And during that time, I was just feeling this sense that Spirit was telling me that, I had some work that I was to be doing. And so I created a healing circle and working with folks who had AIDS. And then my venture took me to meeting one of our queer elders who's since passed, but at the time, James Broughton. And James Broughton, Andrew Raymer was there, a number of queer leaders that were at this gathering. And James Broughton had us all get together. We all got naked. And while we're naked, he had us looking into each other's eyes, putting our hands over each other's hearts. And then he said, okay, now I want you to also hold each other's genitals. And whoa, that connection of heart and genitals, the erotic and the spiritual, were profoundly kind of whooshing through me. And I'm going, man, this guy gets it. He gets what I understood when I was just a boy, kind of trying to come out. And in fact, James Broughton, an elder to me at the time, said, Kirk, you are a sexual healer. And I knew that the healing work that I had done around my abuse was not just for me. I knew that it was for the larger community. I knew it was for other gay brothers. And that term sexual healer, what later I heard as the sacred prostitute, was like activated. It was like my elder, passed on in the blessing of saying, I see you, and I see you as the sexual healer for who you are. So that awakening really informed my journey, and has ever since. And through that process of listening and deep listening, Spirit also kind of gave me what we'll be talking about in many of the different calls, and what we've been doing in our work in the past 30 years, about 6 different archetypes. And I'll just go over them really briefly. But the peaceful warrior, which is one who's willing to face one's fears and one who's willing to know oneself. The lover, the person who's willing to drop their grief so that they can really be open to intimacy. The sacred prostitute, and the sacred prostitute being dropping your shame so that you can actually be of great service through your body. The elder, which is kind of the theme that we're playing with up until September together, and the elder being the man, woman, or they who find themselves knowing that they belong and taking their place in community. So the elder role to me is what every single person that we're going to have on calls, and we have some people lined up that are from 20 to 90, they're going to be on these calls, but they'll all be elders in my mind, because they're people who know they belong and know that they're willing in these times. And some of them, it's kind of like, I don't know, those of you who are listening in, but I sometimes kind of know things and just act on them, but sometimes I kind of feel like I'm kind of pushed into things, nudged into them. And I think eldership a lot of times is not just knowing. It's kind of like when the AIDS crisis happened, all kinds of people immediately jumped in and helped out. But they were coming into their eldership of sharing gifts in a way that they hadn't. I feel like we're in those kinds of times again, where those gifts were being nudged to jump in as the chaos of our world's going on, and us as a queer tribe are really being called to service, to teach. To be kind of the bridge builders that I believe is kind of a unique calling that we as a queer tribe have. So those are little vignettes about my spiritual journey. But my spiritual journey has just been about a hunger within me, and a hunger to connect to little c and big C, and to touch through my body, through my heart, through my mind, to that which is greater. And as queer men, we do that in so many creative and elegant ways. So it's very fun.
Yes. Well, you've actually already started to answer the second question, and you've already talked about us as being part of a queer tribe.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that?
Sure. So yeah, part of my knowing is not just from kind of spiritual, somewhat la experiences, but part of my knowing is just from good science. And, the good science, I heard Harry Hay, before he died, actually, he was the first one that kind of introduced me to looking at the biologist Thomas Huxley's work. And I'm going to actually read a quote. I have it over here on my side. But Thomas Huxley said, "No negative trait, one that does not reproduce, ever continues to appear in any given species millennia after millennia after millennia, unless it is in some way serving the survival of the species." Think about us as queer people. So whether we're LGBTQI, as people who are across that spectrum of gender identity and sexuality, we are born into every tribe, every background, every religion, every nationality. We keep showing up and showing up and showing up. So kind of like Huxley, I really get it that we're actually necessary for the healing of the planet and the sustenance of the planet. And so, yes, I clearly see us as a queer tribe. The other thing that is true for me is that I think every disenfranchised group of people, whether it's people who have been oppressed by a larger culture, women, Me Too, Islam. I mean, right now they're all just kind of out there. But all cultures that are being oppressed, I believe, are being called upon to be the survivors and thrivers. And since we have come from all of those cultures, I believe in our very DNA of our bodies, that we know how to survive and thrive. That's encoded in our bodies. And I think her name was, I'm thinking of an anthropologist who was talking about the fact that it takes that waking up to who we are, that comes from eldership. And I believe as we as a queer tribe really kind of wake up, the more we wake up, we help others wake up. It's kind of like our beloved David Nimmons, who did a book some years ago about the queer tribe. And Dave Nimmons used to say, intrinsic to us as queer people and as gay men is that we're a loving disturbance, that our very being takes people out of black and whites, all in nones. We shake things up because we don't fit into nice, neat, tidy little boxes of conformity, because we come from the whole spectrum. We are the whole spectrum. And I believe that makes us a queer tribe. The other thing that I think in my observation of queer tribe is that there are some commonalities in the tribe. And one of the commonalities that many people have over time written about in the past couple hundred years since we started using terms like gay is that gay people oftentimes tend to be more altruistic or tend to be more service-oriented. There are also people who tend to move towards being change agents or politically active. And that there are studies about us, especially when the AIDS years were coming upon us, but it's true of every tribe, that people who survive and thrive and live longer and better in their bodies are people who indeed have this knowing of who they are. And it comes out of knowing who I am, I'm of service. Knowing who I am, I can be the philanthropist. Knowing who I am, I want to be the change agent for others and helping bring about healing to everyone on the planet. So that's kind of my take. And the juicy part is, we have about 10 more people. We have one person lined up already that is on the calendar for our next call. But people who are doing some form of contribution that's informed by their queerness, informed by their gayness, informed by them really owning all the parts of who they are. And that's the beauty of what I think being queer is and being a queer tribe.
Lovely. So in being this queer tribe, what do you see as a vision? So you get to kind of look at the future and the context in which we live.
Sure. Yeah. I was spending some time before the call just kind of connecting with some of our queer ancestors, and a couple of them are actually people who did calls prior on, so that we have the recorded voices of Raven who died since we did one of these calls.
Yes.
Our brother Sufi mystic Ibrahim. Who died, and just kind of welcoming the energies of some queer ancestors. But I think of, if Harvey Milk were here today, like what would he be telling us to do? How would he have us strategize? And how would he have us be the inclusive community of him, shouting, come out wherever you are, for us to come out. But why come out? So we can, one, be whole, and two, that we can be of service to the planet, to bringing healing to the planet. So yeah, my vision for us is that we one, know who we are, and that we remember who we are so that we can be of greater service, and first and foremost, to be more loving to ourselves. We've got how many thousands of years now of people, places, and things imposing lies upon us after lies upon us. And whether we, I love meeting some of our younger elders who are, in their 20s now, coming out, who don't feel some of the same stigmas, but still intrinsically see all the same backlash happening even to them in the age in which we live. And my vision would be a world where we as queer people bring our contributions like every other tribe so that the world becomes more whole. And that might look like something, I heard about a group of queer people who went to the southern border, who were there as queer people just to give encouragement and to be political activists for those who are seeking asylum. You know, if we're liberated, then we can help liberate other people who are going through what we have gone through or what we're still in together. So I see my vision for us is showing up and bringing our gifts. Part of those gifts, though, have to do with the uniqueness of who we are as gay or queer people. And that feels pretty juicy and yummy to think about that. You know, I mean, some people work within institutions. We're going to be interviewing probably a couple priests from various churches, and soon, and hopefully we're going to be interviewing a Muslim brother, and how those two intersections of their faith tradition, which guides their heart to open up, and their body, which is opened up because they're queer to all of the richness of all traditions, and what they have to bring because of that, who they showed up and chose to be in this lifetime is a queer man bringing guidance to the world. So part of what I see is that we're going to be everywhere doing what we're already do, but doing it without so much entrapment of the lies that have kind of squashed us in the past. And I think those still live in us. There's some research about a generation of people can start suppressing the voices of those who were once vocal. And so, you know, our voices, if you think, have been suppressed and suppressed and suppressed. And even though we're rising up and breaking through all of that, there's still so much that's trying to suppress us. If we really, really knew who we were, if we really, really lived in the beauty of that gift, it would be quite amazing. You know, one of my teachers early on was a man named Ron Roth, and he was a mystic, and he kind of inspired me in part as I wrote the book Erotic Body Prayer some years ago, and but he inspired me because he used several ways of translating the word prayer. And one of those ways was to go back to kind of the Aramaic and looking at the word prayer and what it meant. And one of its meanings is simply that you are wondrously made. If I, you, all the people who are on this call really, really, really felt in every cell of your being that you were wondrously made, it would change the world. So we would be making sure that not only the resistance happens, but the uprisings of something beautiful. One of my priest friends, Jude, said the other day something like, so imagine the caravan that's at the southern border, and imagine that caravan is actually what's in the White House. And that what's at the southern border is the people who are at the White House now. So that kind of reversalism that I think is part of being queer, that we flip things upside down. So that's part of my vision, and it will show itself in all kinds of things, like a Pete Buttigieg and and it will show up in ways in which, in my generation, I never would have even thought could happen. But there are so many plateaus of which I think we can break through to be of greater service, first to ourselves and to the greater world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, 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 yes.
So,
well, I think the time has come to see if there's any questions.
Sure,
out there.
sure.
Any or comments or questions?
Questions or comments, and if not, we'll kind of move on. So just let us know if you have something.
Yes, if you wish, you're welcome to unmute yourself and just speak up. So let's see. And then
I'm gonna jump.
Yes.
Here.
Thank you.
What are your plans here? So I'm a little confused here. So we have 3 people on this call. This is an important topic. What's going on here? Why are not gay men like just jumping up and doing this? And how do we create? I mean, I'm kind of asking, out loud. How do we create strong communities of gay men who are out there in the world with their eroticism and with their political activism?
Yes.
Because I'm having a hard time finding it. And here we've got 3 people on the call, right? We got 3 people on the call. I mean, this should be. I just invited like guys to join your flesh and spirit community. By the way,
thank you. Yeah, great.
But, I'm confused. I'm really confused about gay men.
Sure, great question. And so part of that's probably just logistic that we're relaunching this, and how much time and how many people did it go out to, and how many different ways that people access information now, that we will send this out to 1,000 different gay men. So it will be in the inboxes of 1,000 different people. So it will get out there, even though they're not live on this call. But I think your question is really apropos, is the hunger, how come the hunger didn't drive 100 men to this call at this point in time? And part of that is you can help us with that, and just kind of say, hey, I just landed on this thing, and the next one's August 18th, and you might join in. These are pretty juicy things. But at the same time, why isn't this happening? What I can tell you is that in San Francisco, there are so many rich opportunities for men to connect, as we're talking about, and certainly our community of flesh and spirit. So every week we have 20 to 100 people kind of come through our space and do work around some of the things that we're talking about. So I think the hunger's there, but I think there's so many things distracting us and fragmenting us from kind of finding each other at the time. But do you have thoughts yourself as to?
Well, I've observed that we, gay men, have a lot of healing work to do.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got the highest depression rates, the highest suicide, the highest. I mean, we're not doing too well. We're really not, and we're seriously distracted.
Yes.
And I've been fascinated with this. How do we create communities that are, first of all, heart-centered, and can have that, eroticism and activism, and how do we get this? I've been seeing a lot of gay men kind of short circuit where, I mean, I'm taking my gifts out into the world, but I'm feeling very isolated from a really strong tribe of, let's go get them gay men who are like, let's shake the system. I'm not getting that.
Okay.
I'm a little perplexed. Like, wow, what does it take? Or is it just me? Or wow.
Sure. Well, now that you've got at least a couple comrades on your team that you can keep reconnecting with us, and hopefully we'll be keep expanding this audience. So you can keep asking that question, and hopefully maybe make some contact with others who are close to you, that you might build some bridges yourself, would be my hope and prayer for you. So yeah, thank you for your rich question. Yeah, great. And we have another person who came onto the call. If you have a question before we close out for tonight, Donny has a few closing words, but you can unmute yourself and chime in if you have a question.
Tim, would you like to introduce yourself? We're such a small group, you could even just say hi and just tell us what brings you to the call or what your curiosity is, if you wish. Or you can type it in or not. No pressure, but we'd just like to hear from everyone.
Okay.
Maybe not. Okay.
All right. Well, we're growing, so it looks like that's a good thing.
Yes,
we're growing as the call comes almost to a close.
Yes.
So I'm gonna close with a quote from somebody I just learned of her work, the anthropologist that I was talking about, and she said, the wisdom that we need to solve our problems lies encoded in the depths of our unconscious minds, but it must be evoked by our elders. So my prayer is for us to really step up and step out as elders, and for each of you to be an elder. You don't have a community. May you find one. May you draw people into yourselves that bring community with you, so that the wisdom that we need to solve our problems lies encoded in depths of our unconscious minds. And our work is all about our unconscious is in our bodies. So as we wake up kind of our cellular memory of who we are, we will be a magnet to bring each other together. All right. So you want some closing thoughts?
Yes, I have some closing thoughts, but I think you should tell a little bit more about our event, our elder workshop. You did mention it, but maybe we do have a couple minutes. So.
Sure. Okay. So if we can get you on a plane or a drive into San Francisco, that'd be delicious to join us for events. In September 14th and 15th, we do these things called ecstatic massages, and they're 2-day trainings, but they're always focused on an archetypal theme. And this next one is focused on the archetypal theme of the queer elder or the gatekeeper. And so if you're able to join us, it's a great time. Part of what we know in our experiences is when we get into ecstatic space, we're more open to that guidance, that wisdom, that aliveness, that healthiness that is in our bodies already. And just like the gatekeepers in the tribe in Africa, I met Melodoma Salme, and we got to talk about the gatekeepers in the tribe, in the Dagara tribe. And the gatekeepers were really queer men. They're men who loved men, who would go into their caves and call upon the ancestors, and they'd touch all over each other and welcome the ancestors to bring in the wisdom for the community. Well, we sort of have an adapted version of that for 2 days in San Francisco, where we're really recognizing the passages of us as queer boys who've been wounded a lot of times, our queer man who's been wounded, and then our queer elder who we're calling forth before we become like two of the men who've been on these calls, our queer ancestors. That cycle of healing keeps taking place, and it will be juicy. It will be filled with lots of pleasure. It's probably a few tears. So welcome to that event, and go to our website, fleshandspirit.org. So fleshandspirit.org, and you will see about all our events in San Francisco, but especially for that one. for all of you to join us.
Very good. Very good.
Great.
Okay. Any last remarks? Okay.
I think we've got it.
All right. Well, I wanted to thank you all for being with us, but before we go, I wanted to give you a little teaser.
Yeah, teaser.
So we're going to have our next Queer Tribe call, and it's going to be on the 16th of August. And if you've already opted into our Queer Site page, then you'll get notices about it. So anyway, so 16th of August, same time, 5 p.m. Pacific time, and our guest is going to be Ali Mushtaq. Ali Mushtaq is a medical sociologist and is Mr. Long Beach Leather 2016. Founding member and former vice president of Onyx Southwest, which is a nonprofit catering to people of color. And he's been helping raise money for multiple charities. He also creates leather workshops that serve as an introduction to leather and kink for college nonprofits such as OC Gay Men's Health Conference, National Queer Asian and Pacific Islander Conference. And he was a keynote speaker for Leather Rain in Seattle, where our new friend Jan hails from. So he's quite a mover and shaker, and we'll have a lot of thoughts on our subject matter here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
It should be very fascinating. He seems like a really interesting, sweet guy. Looking forward to talking to him.
Absolutely.
I was presenting at Leather Rain too. So.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Oh, good.
Oh, I can't believe it.
Small world.
Small world. Well, it's all
The opening prayer.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. All right, beloveds. Thank you, brothers, for being on the call.
Yeah.
And we will keep expanding these calls. So we'll see you again in August 16th.
August 16th.
With Ali and go further. So may you all feel blessed in your bodies and your souls and step out and be courageous and elders.
Yes.
So namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste.